But you fought basketball players, you fought strikers in the UFC, you fought a 50-year-old, Mike Tyson. Yeah, the money was there, but it wasn't the toughest matches in the world. Why'd you pick those fights? Because you could make money without it being much of a risk.
It's kind of weird because Jake Paul is extremely bigger than Tank, and I mean, but with it being exhibition, it makes sense.
Going up against a 200-pounder, I think it's not a real fight. Jake just too big. Tank ain't gonna be able to get in from that jab.
Stephen A. Smith didn't hold back when he broke down the upcoming showdown between Jake Paul and Gervonta Tank Davis. According to Stephen, Tank is one of the greatest fighters of this generation, an explosive knockout artist with elite instincts, timing, and power that can end a fight in seconds. Sure, Jake Paul's got the size and reach advantage, but Stephen A. made it clear raw athleticism means nothing when you're standing across from a world-class technician like Tank. He warned that even with Jake's physical edge, stepping into the ring with Gervonta could turn into a harsh, reality check kind of night. A reminder that boxing.
Knockout on Ryan Garcia in April of 2023. Stephen A., is Tank Davis the most exciting fighter in boxing?
Yes, he is. He absolutely is. I love me some Terrence Crawford. He's spectacular. Probably number one pound for pound on the planet. I'm a Canelo Alvarez fan. Obviously, I'm a David Benavidez fan. But this brother, Gervonta Davis, Tank Davis, the time has come for the world to recognize this is one of the top 5 fighters on the planet. He might be top 3.
Yeah.
You can make a legitimate argument for him being 3, 1, or whatever.
According to Stephen A. Smith, Gervonta is one of those rare natural talents, the kind of fighter whose reflexes, instincts, and punching precision put him among boxing's elite. He admits the size difference gives Jake Paul a small window to land something big, but if Tank controls the range and timing, this fight could turn into a one-sided showcase. Stephen A. doesn't mince words in his usual fiery style. He warns Jake that pride could be his biggest enemy. Because when you're trading shots with a refined knockout artist like Gervonta Davis, size alone won't save you.
Jake Paul versus Tank Davis, they just announced the fight. What's your instant reaction to that?
I don't know what's going to happen with a 135-pounder going up against a 200-pounder. I think it's not a real fight. Jake just too big. Tank ain't gonna be able to get in from that jab. Jake land one good punch on Tank. So
Stephen A. Smith has said it more than once. He doesn't see Jake Paul as just some internet star pretending to box. He gives Jake credit for putting in the work, hiring real trainers, building proper fight camps, and taking the sport seriously. By those standards, yeah, Jake's acting like a professional. But Stephen A. makes one thing clear. Being professional isn't the same as proven. Now's the time for Jake to test himself against real boxers, fighters his age, his size, active, and respected in the sport. Only then, Smith says, will we find out if Jake's ready to leave the sideshow behind and earn genuine respect in the boxing world.
Jake Paul is a professional. At some point in time, I don't give a damn if it's a light heavyweight. Better BF, Bivol, a super middleweight, Canelo, Mexican Monster, David Benavidez, somebody that actually has a reputation. The time has come for Jake Paul to step into the ring with a cat who actually boxes for a living and give us that fight. I appreciate the fact of him promoting. I appreciate him having the cachet as a former YouTuber turned boxer. I like Jake Paul. I respect Jake Paul. I'm just saying, because I like him and because I respect him, I want to see him in the ring. And I don't want to hear, I know his numbers are better, but then he gonna say, I don't need Canelo. Canelo needs me. Well, wait a minute. It ain't just about popularity, bruh. But you fought basketball players. You fought strikers in the UFC. You fought a 50-year-old, Mike Tyson. Yeah, the money was there, but it wasn't the toughest matches in the world. Why'd you pick those fights? Because you could make money without it being much of a risk. Well, if you're doing that, how you gonna turn around and knock Canelo Alvarez for doing the same? especially working in a sport that you yourself, Jake Paul, has called corrupt and abusive towards fighters. Now, I understand you're upset. You're a little bit salty about Canelo using you to get a better deal from Riyadh or him turning down a fight with you. But what you're attempting to do and what you have done to some degree, Canelo Alvarez has done. He has fought Triple G. He has fought Mayweather. He has, even though Charlo's undersized, he was a champion. Terrence Crawford is a champion. By the way, he's not 140. He's not 135. He's 147. And then his last fight, I think, was at 154. And oh, by the way, he would move up a couple of weight classes. Now, I think Canelo needs to be fighting David Benavidez as well. But he did fight and knock out Kovalev at the light heavyweight spot. He did fight and lose to Bivol. He did fight Triple G not once, not twice, but 3 times. So when Canelo sits up there and says, I fight fighters, he ain't lying. His reputation does speak for itself. So I can't sit up there and flow with you, Jake Paul, on that one.
Stephen A. Smith hasn't held back on this topic either. He's pointed out that Jake Paul really can't complain about the criticism, especially when even Canelo Alvarez, a certified boxing legend, is catching heat for doing something similar. According to Smith, Canelo's recent fights have leaned more toward money and spectacle than pure competition. But Stephen A. doesn't stop there. He's called Jake out directly. If Jake truly wants to be taken seriously as a boxer, not just as a showman chasing paydays and headlines, then he needs to face someone his own age, his own size, and in his own lane. Smith argues that Jake's been padding his record with opponents who are either smaller, older, or simply outmatched. If he really wants credibility, he's got to fight a peer, someone who can test his skill and expose his limits. That, Stephen A. says, is the only way Jake Paul proves he's not just a headline, but a legitimate boxer.
By the hype at this particular moment in time. Now, I'll give Jake Paul credit for this. At least he's in the ring with a boxer. But 57 years old is 57 years old. And 57 years old and formally walking into a UFC fight as an audience member, as a patron with a cane, it's hard to me believe a year later that you're going to be in any condition to really, really fight. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't know. And if you're Jake Paul, here's what I want to say to you. It's Mike Tyson, that's fine. It's a money fight, I get you, and you want to make money. But at some point in time, if you keep telling us that you're taking boxing seriously and you want to be recognized as a big-time boxer / fighter, you're going to have to fight somebody closer to your age, who is a contender at the very least in the sport and who lives with it every single day. Could you please get in the ring with somebody? Pretty please with sugar on top. I'm interested.
But you fought basketball players, you fought strikers in the UFC, you fought a 50-year-old, Mike Tyson. Yeah, the money was there, but it wasn't the toughest matches in the world. Why'd you pick those fights? Because you could make money without it being much of a risk. Well, if you're doing that, how you gonna turn around and knock Canelo Alvarez for doing the same? Especially working in a sport that you yourself, Jake Paul, has called corrupt and abusive towards fighters. Now, I understand you're upset. You're a little bit salty about Canelo using you to get a better deal from Riyadh or him turning down a fight with you. But what you're attempting to do and what you have done to some degree, Canelo Alvarez has done. He has fought Triple G. He has fought Mayweather. He has, even though Charlo's undersized, he was a champion. Terrence Crawford is a champion. By the way, he's not 140. He's not 135. He's 147. And then his last fight, I think, was at 154. And oh, by the way, he would move up a couple of weight classes. Now, I think Canelo needs to be fighting David Benavidez as well. But he did fight and knock out Kovalev at the light heavyweight spot. He did fight and lose to Bivol. He did fight Triple G not once, not twice, but 3 times. So when Canelo sits up there and says, I fight fighters, he ain't lying. His reputation does speak for itself. So I can't sit up there and flow with you, Jake Paul, on that one.
Meanwhile, Jake Paul hasn't exactly stayed quiet about the criticism. He's quick to remind people that he's still new to boxing. This isn't something he's been doing his whole life. Jake leans into his entertainment roots, saying things like, "I was on Disney while these guys were already winning UFC belts." The message is clear. His critics have been in combat sports for years, while he was busy building a name and a brand in show business. So, from his perspective, it's unrealistic to expect him to jump straight to the top overnight. Still, Jake insists he's learning fast. He says he's in the fight game for real now, ready to prove himself the hard way, inside the ring.
You are beating up on dudes who don't box. They're not boxers.
I was on Disney Channel while these guys were winning UFC championships.
Okay.
You know, I was playing with Mickey Mouse while these guys were throwing arm bars and winning UFC championships. Everyone's, analyzing my career, critiquing it, paying attention to it from day one, but you can't tell me who was Mike Tyson's first fight. You can't tell me who Muhammad Ali, who was his fourth fight. No one knows, but everyone's seen all of my fights. I tried to fight Tommy Fury. Yeah, I tried to fight Tommy Fury, and he backed out due to a rib injury. Undefeated, young prospect. He comes from the Fury family. His brother's the heavyweight champion of the world. I tried to fight him, and he got scared.
Stephen A. Smith has actually been pretty vocal about his respect for what Jake Paul is doing in boxing, especially when it comes to self-promotion. He's made it clear that, while he has plenty of criticism about Jake's choice of opponents or the legitimacy of some fights, he still respects the hustle. Smith points out that Jake is proving there's another way to succeed in boxing, a path that doesn't leave fighters completely at the mercy of promoters. He argues that for too long, promoters have manipulated matchmaking, stalled fighters' careers, controlled who gets the big opportunities, and abused their power in the process. So when Jake steps in and starts cutting through those old-school constraints, bringing attention, money, and fresh energy to the sport, Smith sees that as meaningful. In his words, that kind of disruption counts for a lot.
I've always been a fan of Jake because I think that what Jake tries to do for the sport of boxing, I think people don't realize the importance of him being able to promote for himself and not being reliant on the promoters who I believe has held the sport hostage. The only critique I've ever given Jake, I just want Jake to fight boxers. Like Nate Diaz, we know his reputation. We know the man can fight. We know in the octagon he could be something special. But we know you breathe on him, he starts bleeding.
It's a fair critique. And you know what? He should fight boxers. But then again, should he? Because I'll tell you why. If you're a human who can rake in $6 to $10 million fighting people that you're going to beat, and you want to build a resume and a record that's impressive with a good highlight reel, you got to be strategic about this shit. Jake's 25, 26. He's got so much time.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, I get where you coming from. All I'm saying is, we don't know your skill set because you haven't been in there with anybody really, really skilled.
One of boxing's sharpest minds, Terrence Crawford, didn't mince words when breaking down this matchup. He predicts the fight could be physically unbalanced. Jake Paul's size and strength might tip the scales if he manages to land a single clean shot. Crawford put it bluntly, if Jake connects early, that one punch could change everything. But he also added a big caveat. Because of the size gap, this might end up feeling more like an exhibition than a true, high-stakes boxing chess match.
Jake Paul versus Tank Davis, they just announced the fight. What's your instant reaction to that?
I don't know what's going to happen with a 135-pounder going up against a 200-pounder. I think it's not a real fight. Jake just too big. Tank ain't gonna be able to get in from that jab. Jake land one good punch on Tank, it's over.
Teddy Atlas, one of boxing's most respected voices, has been surprisingly open about Jake Paul's rise and the grind behind it. He's acknowledged that, no matter what the critics say, Jake deserves credit for making his own lane and securing the fights he wants. Atlas points out that doesn't just happen by luck. It takes persistence, serious investment, and a willingness to trade comfort for chaos, to risk stability for the spotlight. Jake Paul has built a place for himself in boxing that no one ever thought possible for a YouTuber-turned-fighter. And Atlas gives him props for more than just promotion. He notes that Jake's genuinely improved, spending years training with top-tier coaches, sparring real pros, and learning how to survive under pressure. Sure, boxing purists still mock him, but Atlas says that kind of criticism ignores the bigger picture. Whether you like him or not, Jake's journey shows just how much work, time, and sacrifice he's put in to reach this point.
That I gave too much credit to Paul Why? He's done a hell of a job to put himself in this position. He sold himself. He sold his dream. He took his dream. He took his idea. He put it out there, and he made it happen. Give him credit for that. And he made it happen. And he took risk along the way. Yeah, he picked his spots. He's in the driver's seat. He gets to pick his spots. He's the one bringing the money. He's the one promoting. Yeah, he's the name. He made himself that, coming from where he came from, with all his followers and the whole thing, and just the uniqueness of what he was doing. But he has learned along the way. He's not a top guy yet. No, I don't know that he ever will be. He didn't have that amateur background and the things that you usually need to be a top guy. But he has improved. He is a work in progress. He is a guy that you got to give him credit that he's respected the sport. He went out there, he's worked hard at it, and he's gotten himself into this position. Having said all of that, this might be a step too far. Now, when I say it, I try to be responsible. I've been in this game 50 years, so I know where not to step, where you could twist an ankle, or worse, you could break a leg or fall down.